Well, indeed, I am kicking up a bunch of new stuff on the channel, as you've hopefully seen over the past week. There is by no means going to be a shortage of things to talk about with Guild Wars. Obviously, we did just have the most recent patch, the extension to Bureau with Shadow in the Ice, but we also seem to be on the cusp of another new patch, that being the Visions of the Past starting out, where we'll be able to play as Ryland and so on. Well, between those two, today we had some kind of update specifically to do with refining the most recent release, and it's going to be quite fun talking about these changes actually, because they give me an opportunity to express to you guys some of the features in this patch I haven't talked about just yet. Largely, a lot of the changes are to do with the new world boss, Drakkar, who supposedly has been tuned up in numerous ways. I kind of disagree with that from my experience so far, but it might just be because the only times I've done it have been right after the patch. So, let's jump on in, see what we think, and in addition to this, I think the devs are doing a live stream tonight. In fact, right as you watch this video, they might even be doing a stream where we'll get even more information. So let's run on over, see what they have to say. February 11th, 2020 is pretty sizable, as you can see. This stuff at the bottom is obviously Gem Store, but all this other stuff, pretty good. So, as Jormag's influence continues to grow throughout the region, Drakkar and its minions grow more powerful. We actually get a little bit of flavor text on the patch note. They don't always do that. Usually that only accompanies a major release, but here we have it. So here's what they say. Drakkar, the boss fight's damage output is increased. Defiance bar has been strengthened, but health has decreased and he's gained new abilities. So just to recap here, last I talked to you about Drakkar, my initial groups that I had played when the patch was new were really struggling to kill him. Not because he did much damage or was a threat, just because he had so much health. And it was a risk of the meta event running out. So those were my original comments. I do stand by those early experiences I had. There were several of them. But to tell you the truth, nowadays, I mean, I've got the full meta achievement for it now. It keeps coming back, which requires you to kill him 10 times. Honestly, the vast majority of the runs I actually did, that is before this February 11th patch, he was dying reasonably quickly. It's a half-an-hour event. He'd die in about 15 minutes. So maybe I just got really unlucky early on. And a few of you guys in the comments said that. I'm happy to be wrong about that. So, if we assume then that Drakkar wasn't too hideously balanced, and he pretty much was just a bit of a pushover like most world bosses, just a little bit grindy, okay? You can think something like Tyler Covington, maybe. What do these new updates mean? Well, he'll be less grindy for sure, because as they said, his health has been diminished. And this is very true. I have played it post-patch. He dies really, really, really quickly now. Not only does his health seem to have gone down, specifically the scaling. So I guess if you go with a low man group, he's still a bit of a threat. But the intervals at which he retreats into the ice seem to have diminished as well. One of the 10 that I've done was with a really well-optimized Zerg. Wow, I was loaded back into getting one-shot by a worm. One of the events I went in on Drakkar before this patch, they had really high damage, but every 5% or so, the boss would always retreat into the ice. And then you'd have to stand around and wait, and then he'd come out, and then you'd hit him a bit, and then he'd almost instantly go back in the ice, and then you'd have to stand around. So the amount of standing around has been lessened now as well. It feels like he doesn't go into the ice so much. So not only has his health gone down, but you get more uptime on hitting him. Basically, the event is much shorter. Seriously. They say that the Defiance bar has been strengthened. I've had 2 experiences of this since the patch. Both of them, the Defiance bar felt easier, so I'm not sure about that. His damage going up, I haven't really felt any different. The fact he dies a lot quicker now kind of means that if his damage did go up, he doesn't really get time to really wear a group down, I suppose. It could just be because some of those guys that came on the really early after February 11th runs are really into the game and knew that this patch was coming, so they wanted to try it, and they're maybe going to be a little bit better than later. But so far, he still feels pretty much like a typical world boss. It says he's got new abilities. I really don't know what those are, guys. I really don't. Maybe you guys can fill me in the comments. Maybe I just need to get into some more varied Zergs. I'm well up for holding my opinion off until I experience a little bit of that. Here, I can definitely agree with this. The Spirit Champions in the 3 phases have had their health and damage increased. Definitely their health, you can feel, has really very much gone up. Then there's the Spiritual Binding. So Spiritual Binding is the little debuff you get, which means that you can't go in to fight another one of the mini-bosses if you've already killed one. Like the Vinewrath mechanic, they've doubled it from 4 to 8 minutes. The reality of the situation is because his health's gone down, he goes into the ice less. They didn't even need to double this. This mechanic would have started working every time already. And before patch, it was even starting to work regularly for me. So Anyway, you definitely do want to pick just one mini-boss per meta now, it feels like, unless yours is going really slow. Certain attacks that are increasingly hard to avoid will no longer remove the Nimble Onslaught eligibility. Also, they fixed a bug with the application time of the eligibility, and there's a new achievement, Truly Nimble Onslaught, which has been added. The achievement has a higher hit count threshold and gives a new title. Okay, so the full story here I can tell you guys in-game. Basically, pre-patch, one of the special achievements in the new Drakkar section was this down here, Nimble Onslaught. And what it meant is you had to do the whole meta, you had to kill the boss without being hit 8 times. Now, he was very, very long. It made this achievement extremely difficult to get legitimately. Like, you'd be hiding at the back of the arena, or you deliberately break combat and wait a while just so you could cheese at the end, or join at the last second. And a lot of people basically cheesed this. I sort of third cheesed it, and a third played like a wimp and hid at the back. It appeared on one of my streams. That's how I got it. But obviously, it wasn't really that entertaining, and it led to dangerous gameplay where players would scale the event up but not really participate much because they're trying to get Nimble Onslaught. The devs basically, I don't think, appreciate how everybody got Nimble Onslaught, so they've added a new version, Truly Nimble Onslaught. You might remember a similar thing actually happened with Wing 4 of raiding when people were cheesing some of the challenge modes. So if you already earn it, they won't take it away. Personally, I think they should take it away and just reinstate the achievement. Maybe there's a back-end reason why they can't do that. I did have somebody comment saying, oh, it's just what this game needs, more unattainable AP. Because, like, now I have this 5 AP. If you never got the original one, you can never get that. And I get that. That kind of sucks. I'd rather I just lose this achievement. But I think the devs don't like taking things away from the players. Instead, this is now just a hidden achievement that is obviously impossible for everyone in the future. And Truly Nimble Onslaught is now available. Which I think for a little while you needed for the meta, as you can see here. And basically the idea on this one is you can't cheese it anymore. You have to do it legitimately. But instead of it being 8 hits, it's 20. And as we just saw on the patch notes, there's a load of things that they've done to make it easier. One of the really annoying raw attacks, basically, it sounds like won't hit you so much anymore. There's better telegraphs. I think it will be much more possible. Probably people will still play like wimps in certain positions to get it. But you get way more stacks, and hopefully, I mean, you saw I was playing a Guardian just now. Spamming Aegis and using certain options available to you in Buildcraft can allow you to play the game properly and still get this. I think the main thing is just because the event ends so much quicker, it's really attainable. Even without the buff of the amount of hits you can now withstand. So there you go. Regular Nimble Onslaught is no longer available. They've bumped the number of achievements required. Sorry, they dropped the number of achievements required from 10 to 8. I don't know whether I necessarily agree with this, but okay. Don't forget there's 2 metas to get in this patch. One for Drakkar and one for the rest of the patch. All players will now be dismounted when the event begins. I think this helps to stop cheese, mainly to do with sky scale combat breaking, potentially. Mist-falling ice orbs have greater consequences for any players who didn't participate in absorbing the effect. I have to admit, post-patch, I've been playing this, not really focusing on the greens. This is the mechanic where, you know, it drops on you and it gives you a damage buff. You can learn about it and actually get one of the achievements over at the Ox Shrine, where the same thing happens. You're like, breathe like Ox by running along and actually grabbing those. I'm going to waypoint to the center here before I freeze to death. So, that's now more punishing, I guess. I still like the idea of this being tuned even more someday, but hey. Greater risk comes greater rewards. Drakkar now has a new weapon set, as well as other additions, and defeating him will give an increased amount of experience once per day. So anyone who really wanted the masteries can go for that experience. That isn't a non-significant update. The reason I say that, I personally loved the way that achievements were structured here, both in terms of points and experience. This is one of the first patches I've ever had where I really felt like it was a meaningful mechanic. And the reason for that is that, you know, we've got so many masteries going on at once, and they're all hitting higher tiers, and these become exponentially difficult as the tiers go up. That means if they were to add another one, let's say the next patch is Icy again. I don't mean Visions with Ryland, I mean after that. If it's Icy again and they bring us up to Essence of Resilience T4 or whatnot, it would really be a lot of points, and it would really be a lot of experience. And I think that's all very good and healthy. If we're thinking of the whole saga as expansion-like, I think having these big bulk moments are kind of a parallel to big bulk moments of starting Heart of Thorns, where you got to choose, do I start with Gliding or Itzel or Exalted and so on. But some people didn't like it. Well, there you go. You get more experience. So there you have it. Maybe a nice middle ground from the devs. The more exciting thing is obviously the new weapon set. It's the Broken Voice Ascended set. Now, what the devs have done here is basically they took the Restored Burial set that we're going for throughout the regular patch, right? And the final tier of that, I can't remember what they're called. The final tier of that obviously looks blue. Well, you can bypass the whole thing if you get really lucky. And you can get a yellow version of essentially the same thing, but from the world boss. Some of you are going to cry foul and say that's lazy, it's just a recolor or whatever. But I kind of like the idea that you've got these two different halves of the patch. It's not too much different to what we see in SAB or whatnot. And this, to me, is paying off on that design decision they made all that time ago to not let us dye weapons. It means they can do more interesting things with the rewards. And, hey, we'll see whether this stuff feels very rewarding. To me, as someone trying to get all the skins in the game, I have to say, this does make my heart sink a little bit, because it now means I've got to work on Tequatl stuff for potentially years on end, Aurene stuff in Dragonfall for years on end, and maybe even this. It depends what the drop rate's like, but I would just really like, if ArenaNet keep doing this, I'd love at some point in the future another mechanic in the game where I can somehow increase my rates, even just a little bit, on these specific kinds of ultra rare drops. Maybe whenever I finish a login reward, we should be able to choose that instead of just mindlessly picking laurels or whatever people do these days. I don't know. That might be interesting, a choice that people can make, like a significant trade-off for it, but it would be cool, because right now, a lot of this just feels really unattainable to me. Really unattainable. And that puts me off the idea of going for everything, which, you know, has been so much fun for the game. Anyway, so there you go. That's pretty much your rewards. They do have a little bit of extra stuff. This was all Drakkar, of course. They also say for the new patch, Cloud Seekers, optional conversation at the end of the Chasing Ghost chapter of Shadow in the Ice, can now be accessed by all players within the instance. There was a little bit of an issue there in terms of co-op, I believe they're resolving here. And they also say an additional dialogue option has been added to an NPC in the final instance. Not sure what this is. Maybe this references something to do with the Visions mechanic and Ryland later. I have to say, I haven't replayed the patch to find it out. I like this. For the real lorehounds and real geeks, it's kind of like we get our initial playthrough. Now there's a reason to go back, you know, a little bit later, because Jormag's influences continue to grow, and this will tease us at something else. That's quite an efficient little update, I think. For what it's worth as well, you guys may not realize, Cloud Seeker, you can always find in the central outpost on this patch. I haven't talked about this yet. But as you progress through the meta achievement, his dialogue will change. Like, if you just do the story and you go ask him for his dialogue, it will be like a repeat of what you heard in the actual initial playthrough, the story instance. But when you beat the meta achievement, more and more Coden are actually appearing at this outpost. You guys might not have realized that, but they're getting dynamically added as you progress the meta achievement to help out in this region of the world. And I believe when you finish the meta achievement, which I haven't done yet, all right, it's a good-sized patch for that. When you beat the meta achievement, his dialogue himself changes. Now, I think that's a really, really cool setup. I'd love to see ArenaNet do more of that. It's a shame not many people actually know about it. And there's, of course, another hidden Easter egg here as well. I think it's fair to talk about it now. This isn't really a spoiler, but there's a hidden achievement on the map, which is when you load in here, you get a vision of all the Coden just dying. It's really creepy. You get an achievement. Pretty awesome, and that was also something I hadn't talked about in the patch yet. All right, so there you go. That's new stuff. They also have some other things. We'll wisp through this a little bit quicker. Offerings in the Wolverine Shrine will no longer fuse with the offering table. I never ran into that. Moving Blizzard areas and Bureau Marches have been adjusted to better align with their visual effects. Apparently that was off. I'd never noticed that. The Defeat the Threat to the Festivities events in Grothmar Valley have a longer delay between the map indication and the threat appearing. This should make it easier for players chasing the Party Guardian achievement. So yeah, Party Guardian, again, was a really awesome thing from Icebrood Saga. I compliment it massively. We had a new patch with a new region of the world to go to, with new two full metas, and they still took time to add new stuff to do on the previous map. That's the Party Guardian achievement. Basically, after each meta in Grothmar happens, there's a new event with a random champion you kill. Alright, I get it, guys. It's not that interesting. I get it. There's some standing around. But it's the principle that matters, and it's the principle that I can encourage anyone to go and play Grothmar right now, and I know there's a population there, because a ton of the new players have been shunted back as much as they've been shunted forward. Really, really solid. And anyway, they've done a little bit of a refinement for that. So I stand by that. That's a good patch. Some of you guys tried to change my mind in the comments. I'm sticking firm on that one. Dodging the last attack of the freezing cold hits during a blizzard will no longer result in being permanently frozen. I'd never hit that, but that sounds pretty funny. That's like a horrible buggy punish for someone who's paying a lot of attention. And the first step of Shadow in the Ice is as its text updated to indicate the specific vigil keep you should beat Jorah at. It says meet Jorah? This is not right. It's Jorah's daughter, alright? It's Jarvi, not Jorah. Jorah's a Guild Wars 1 character, ArenaNet. That's the kind of mistake I would make. And it's ironic considering it's in a patch note about messing up the naming of something. Yeah, I guess some players went to the Vigil Keep, as in the one in Gendaron Fields, not the new one. Pretty funny stuff. Items. They fixed a bug with the fishing rod from the new patch. You beat the fishing achievement. It unlocks the ability to buy a fishing rod, which is a staff skin. Pretty cool. But no, that's not an official fishing feature. It wasn't allowed to be in the Mystic Forge. That's updated. Some visual bugs for Asura and Norn characters, the biggest and smallest. The Endless Cloudseeker tonic no longer requires players to confirm the item name in order to remove it from their inventories. So this is a cool hidden little bit of loot in the patch. Very Guild Wars money what they did here. One of the mini dungeons, I think it's the Lost Labyrinth, one of the light puzzles, basically. You do the Lost Labyrinth, a chest spawns at the end, and you have a rare chance when looting that chest to get an everlasting tonic for Cloudseeker. Now, I don't know if that's a combat tonic, Wiki might say, but we already have a Coden combat tonic, so I assume it might be. Another variety of Coden? I'm pretty thrilled with that. I'm especially thrilled, to be honest, because back when I was making my Stellaris mod, I added the Coden as a playable Galactic Empire race, and I used the tonic to create, you know, different species and types of, you know, portraits you can pick. And now, if I ever went back to it, I could do more, because there's a Cloudseeker one. But yeah, so pretty nice little update there, and a part of the patch, again, I just hadn't been able to talk to you guys about. Fixed some bugs with the Saga Portal Tome. They updated the icon. There was like a Reddit post messing about with this and talking about how they didn't even recolor it, so it's been recolored. Mystic Forge recipes for creating the new type of amalgamated draconic lodestones you can now do in bulk. This is, if you guys aren't familiar, this is the new lodestone I'm assuming we'll use, or a new form of amalgamated, as the season goes along to create prestige rewards. I do think it's probably a season-long thing. Right now, it's just for restored burial stuff. And then they added it in the material storage too. The fact they're putting the material storage really suggests to me that it's going to be a season-long thing, and that's cool. Hopefully we get some opportunities while playing as Ryland to earn more of those. Maybe more opportunities to spend them too. So then you have the Corteria Ruler of the Skies achievement, where you're flying around the sky scale. I was so enthusiastic about those before, I still am. But there was a bug where you'd sometimes do the rift, and then you'd realize you never actually got credit, so you had to do it again. Not a big deal. It's like, okay, spend 45 seconds of your life again doing the thing again. Could be a little bit annoying. Well, that seems to have been fixed, which is nice. A rift in Metrica was not counting towards the Tarnished Coast achievement, and one in Caledon Forest was counting for both itself and Metrica. So now they both count towards their appropriate thing. And 2 of the rifts in the Sandswept Isles counted twice. 2 of them in Lion's Arch were not being counted, so that's been fixed, and Lion's Arch will now count. So just some weird, quick coding of mocking up of these achievements they're about to refine out. Got a little Black Lion section you guys can pause if you'd like. They did add a new glider. There is still the Jorah outfit. There's a new, like, Geomancer's Scepter on there, returning things, blah, 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 blah. Wiki notes that if you were using the map load info command line argument, I haven't talked about these for ages, but sometimes you'll watch one of my videos and you'll see there's a ton of information in the bottom left-hand corner of the loading screen. That is when you use the map load info command line argument. Well, that could increase your loading screens. I don't know for how long. I haven't used the argument for a while. I don't have a client set up with it at the moment. I might, or a shortcut, I should say, rather. But apparently that's been fixed. They've listed the build. They did have a section up here of late notes. Well, not even late notes, just bug fixes. I'm not going to read these out. They're really not interesting enough. You guys can pause if you'd like. They're very minor. The only one that's interesting to me is genuinely about 2 hours ago, I got stuck inside of a T3 chest, and it looks like they've just fixed that. Pretty funny. I'm assuming that Bone Skinner bugs are being fixed here as well, but since he's just moved out of rotation with the strikes, we won't see that until he returns later, as per what they said on the forum posts. There you go, that's it. That's your late notes. A little bit of a follow-up, some more features from the patch that I get a chance to talk about now as well. And yeah, I'll be keeping an eye on the devs live stream, some of the stuff coming up as well. I think they're talking a lot about Drakkar today, so we'll see. Are my early post-patch Drakkar experiences not the full revamp? What are the new abilities they're talking about? I guess we'll see. Is it really going to get to triple trouble or tech levels? My verdict right now is no. But we will have to see how time goes. You guys can definitely fill me in on these early hours in the comments below, and I will see you guys for another one very soon. Please, if you haven't been checking it out, don't forget that I've been doing a full playthrough of Living World Season 2 at the moment. Kind of amazing to look back at what the characters were doing back then and compare to all the way down here at what is essentially Season 5. And I'm also playing the Elder Scrolls, and I've got some cool content going out on that as well. So if you guys haven't seen that, please feel free to check it out. There should be links in the description, all that fun stuff. and I'll see you down in the comments. Have fun, guys. See you tomorrow.